Hey, what's up guys? Finally, a knife review. Yes, I've been teasing you with this Benchmade bone collector for a while now. Showed it in my EDC video not too long ago. And finally time for a review. This one's coming out of rotation and I'm starting to carry other knives so I can use them and review them in the future. And so it's time to do a review. A lot of experience with this knife, carrying it, using it. Things I like about it, things I don't like about it. Overall, I do like the knife. It's a fantastic knife. It's really, in my opinion, it's worth the price tag. These sell anywhere from $120 to $130. Yes, there's a lot of competition out there in that price range. There's a lot of great knives, but it's a good buy, in my opinion. Initially, what you've seen so far from me in videos is that I did not like the texturing combination with this pocket clip. It ripped up my pants. Very simple solution. Well, actually, you know what? Let's talk about it right now. This pattern that's cut into the G10 is Benchmade's rib cage pattern. It's what they call it. The whole theme of this knife is hunter. It's a hunterman's knife, an outdoorsman's knife, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But this texturing, you know, the cutouts they have here, the pocket clip happens to land right on the edge of that groove. And so when the material of your pants, when you're clipping this to your pocket, it does a wavy thing. And then when you pull it out, the wave part puts pressure on the inside edge of this G10, and it's squared off enough where it's, I wouldn't say it's sharp, but it's a squared off edge enough to the point where it was definitely causing damage to my pants pocket, okay, from repeated, you know, clipping and unclipping. So I didn't like it, and in fact, I stopped carrying it. I said, well, I'm not going to damage my pants because of this problem. And there are very, very simple solutions. If you were to take the pocket clip off, okay, you can do a number of different things to resolve this problem, from making it better to completely removing any risk of damaging your pocket. The most extreme thing you can do to this would be to take a Dremel and just literally remove this one shelf here. Actually, I'm going to use this little griptilian because I'm going to be comparing these knives as a pointer. This shelf right here, if you take a Dremel and just knock that off, you'd be totally cool. If you've seen, Nothing Fancy did a video a long time ago on the epoxy thing. There's a lot of cold steel knives. He didn't like the texturing, it was way too aggressive. So he used some epoxy and then sand it down smooth. That'll work too. That's definitely a more complex fix to this. The simplest fix, honestly, would be to take the pocket clip off, take some aggressive sandpaper, and just knock off the very edges of, you know, these sides. Right here and here, you know, all the edges. Just in this area where the pocket clip puts pressure down. Okay, simple solution. And I did not do that yet because I want to keep this as is before I modify it. But now that I'm doing the review, when this review is done, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is just take some sandpaper and just knock off those edges so they're not so sharp. Okay. And once you do that, I'm sure it'll be totally fine to carry with very, very minimal, if any, damage to your pocket. But all that being said, we can actually start the review. I just want to go over that because that's something that I've been talking about for a while now. So I want to get that out of the way. That, assuming that's not a problem and that solution works for you, this is a fantastic knife. It really, really is a great knife. I've always liked the griptilians. You can see I have the mini grip here, combo edge, and then I have a full size with the plain edge. Now, of course, these are a little bit different. This full size has a thumb stud as opposed to the opening hole on that. Clip point as opposed to the modified sheep's foot blade. And in fact, this bone collector is rocking that same style blade. And it's a modified sheep's foot. Sheep's foot blade, what makes it modified basically is the spine curvature on it. Dips down a little bit before it pops back up around the nose of the tip. Now, it's a very strong blade style. It's very versatile. Okay, something like a clip point comes to more of a point, and of course there's other blade styles that come to even more of an acute point. They have their advantages. They literally, the pointier they are, the easier they are to penetrate into things. When you are, you know, digging into boxes to cut them open or plastics, it helps, but they end up being more fragile. This is a very nice knife design in general because it's a little bit more abusable is the only way I can say it. If you use your knives a little bit harder, you don't want as pointy of a tip. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you guys have figured that out by now by snapping the tips off your blade. You have one of two options. If you're using a knife and your tip snaps off or it damages or it grinds down to like a nub and it's no longer pointy, there's two things you could do. You could start buying knives like this that don't have as pointy of a tip, or you can use your knives less aggressively. So you gotta just kind of pick one and stick with it. But anyway, it is a versatile blade shape. Now, as far as opening hole versus thumb stud, it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. Honestly, it doesn't make a difference. Most of my knife youth, let's call it, I was a hardcore thumb stud guy. When I started seeing opening holes, I'm like, what is that? I'll take my thumb studs, thank you, because I love them, and I can flick them open nice and fast, or you can open them nice and slowly. You know, they're awesome. Huge thumb stud fan. But over the years, I've grown to realize that the opening hole, as opposed to the thumb stud, is much more versatile, particularly with gloved hands. And people have talked about this before, and I can tell you from personal experience, when you're wearing gloves, whether it's wintertime or you're using a work glove, having an opening hole is a lot easier to manipulate than having a thumb stud, okay? There's just no way around it. It's a lot easier. And something else I'm gonna bring up that not a lot of you guys would know from experience is that when you're wearing latex gloves, thumb studs are not your friend. Thumb studs tear the latex glove, you know, very easily. The material ends up gripping, particularly if there's knurling around the thumb stud itself. It grips very aggressively and it kind of twists around. And when you go to open your knife, whether you're flicking it open or opening it nice and slowly, when you pull your thumb away, you feel, you know, it holding on, and it kind of snaps off. You know, you hear that little or whatever, I don't know, I make a sound effects of a latex glove snapping, but yeah, it damages the glove. And then once you have a little tear in your glove, once you use it, it just completely splits open, and it defeats the purpose of having the glove to begin with. Working with the mail, I use gloves for a variety of reasons. When you're dealing with a lot of paper, it dries your hands out, like insanely dries your hands to where your skin's cracking. Plus, you know, paper cuts, plus latex gloves gives you a lot of grip. You really may not think of it, you know, you may not think that, but doing certain things, when you use a latex glove, you do have a lot more grip on things. In my case, dealing with paper and mail and stuff like that, it's a huge benefit to me. So when I'm at work, I tend to stay away from my knives with thumb studs. So that's another advantage to this particular design. Just more versatile, but although it is still a preference type thing, whether it's thumb studs or opening holes. But as you can see, this one has an opening hole. So this blade is D2, and I just got this in a trade. I'm a big fan of D2. This happens to be a D2 griptilian. And Rockwell is about 60 to 62, holds an edge a lot longer. D2, of course, at this point you should probably know, it's tool steel, and it, you know, it has the potential to rusting, or to rust easier than stainless steels. And that's another thing, stainless steels can and will rust. Just because it's stainless doesn't mean it's rust proof, it just rusts less or stains less. But anyway, you do want to keep any of your D2 blades, particularly one like this that's not coated, like that, you want to just keep them lightly oiled. Hasn't been a problem since I've had this knife. I literally wiped it down maybe twice, and it's been totally good to go. No surface rust, no oxidation, nothing like that, so not really a problem at all. The specs on this, the blade is 2.95 inches long, closed 4.13 inches, and overall 7.08 inches. Now, comparing these to the griptilians, it's right in the middle. It's bigger than a mini grip, smaller than a full-size grip. So when I put the bottoms of the handles all together, hopefully you can get a visual on that. Actually, this probably be a better visual for you. So I'm gonna line all these up like that. Now you can see the overall length is just slightly longer than the mini grip and substantially shorter than the full-size griptilian. So if you're kind of in between with these, this will fit you perfectly. But it'll give you a reference. If you happen to have this knife, okay, it's smaller. If you happen to have this knife, can I talk today? If you happen to have this knife here, you'll know that it's slightly bigger. Definitely chunkier, okay, and also a little bit heavier. The bone collector is coming in at 3.46 ounces. Now, there's some obvious things that will, you know, point out the fact that, yeah, it's going to be a little bit chunkier and heavier. First of all, the G10. G10 is definitely heavier, more dense than the synthetics that are used on the griptilians. And by the way, a lot of people who like griptilians, but they think they feel cheap, you're going to like the bone collector. The G10 has a nice, really nice feel to it, but it's chunky. Okay, the scales themselves are wider. And this is also a 3-piece handle as opposed to the 2-piece. Okay, this is 2 scales that come together. You can see the line in the middle. Okay, each scale is molded so that it wraps around and they meet together. So you have 2 handle scales. And of course you have liners in here as well, partial liners. We'll talk about that more in the future because I'm going to be doing a blade swap with this knife. But on the bone collector, we have two handle scales on top of liners, which are milled, by the way. You can see the holes there. They're milled all the way across on both sides for weight reduction because you have the added weight of the thicker scales in addition to a full, well, I shouldn't say full, it's about a 3/4 back spacer. Okay, so we have a 3/4 enclosure design here on the handle, which will trap a little bit more lint and stuff in the pocket. Not a huge deal. That's never been an issue for me. It's worth mentioning, but you know, some people prefer, they like don't want knives like this at all because they want the free, you know, flow through design. I don't want my knife getting dirty, you know, whatever. It's never been a problem for me. If you have pocket lint that's actually not allowing your blade to close, you need to wash your pants. Okay, you don't need to get a flow through knife. But anyway, not going to get into your personal business. Yeah, we have this, you know, textured back spacer here. That's full stainless steel, so of course that's going to add weight as well. Feels great. These, I don't know what you'd call these. Each individual piece is, it protrudes up just slightly. I'll move this out of the background so you can see that. Just a little bit where you can feel it in the hand, but it's not too aggressive. The overall feel on this is great, but it is definitely chunkier than when you grab in a griptilian. It's noticeably different. Slimline, simple, easy, you know, comfortable. Equally comfortable, but definitely more hand filling. If you like your very thin, slim knives, you may prefer a griptilian, the mini grip, over this. Okay, as far as the full size grip, it actually feels about the same as far as width and just the overall feel. So it's smaller, but just as wide, let's say. Now the whole theme here, the bone collector, it's a hunter's knife. You know, it's an outdoorsman, a sportsman. This is in collaboration with Michael Waddell, and if you don't know him, you can Google him. He has his own website and stuff. He does a lot of work with hunting shows. He films for Real Tree. He does a lot of work with Real Tree, which is a camouflage company. So you can see the subtle hints with my last video on that billboard. Which, by the way, if you didn't get it, they're camouflage wedding rings. Like I'm all for hunting. Like that's cool and everything. If you like to hunt, that's awesome. But like, you know, you got to be a hardcore hunter to get some camo on your wedding ring. But anyway, who am I to judge, right? But yeah, that's the whole theme here, is the outdoorsman or sportsman's type knife. You know, it's a very, very cool logo. You can see it's on the blade there. It's like the big old skull with the rack, and then of course the you know, the human skull mixed in with the animal skull. It's, you know, man and beast in one, and the whole spiritual thing that there is with hunting. I haven't personally experienced it, but I know a lot of people who do, and it is a, you know, it's a spiritual thing when people hunt, from what I understand. But anyway, there are a couple versions of this. This one is the black and green G10, the layer G10. You can get this also in solid black G10, and you can also get this with a solid walnut scales. Now that one's, to me, is a more traditional huntsman type knife. The wood, to me, is very traditional with being in the woods and hunting and stuff like that. When I picture a hunter, I'm not picturing these modern day stuff. I'm not picturing a knife with G10 on it or FRN or anything like that. I'm picturing just a straight up simple wooden steel. Can't go wrong with wood and steel. But I like this combo, and I like the layered. You know, I'm starting to, like I told you before, I'm starting to like a little bit of color in my knives. I love me some black knives, obviously. Very cool. But a little color is not going to hurt anything, and it's nice to be a little bit different. Although we're mimicking the same sheep's foot blade on a lot of the griptilians, both small and large, what I do see the biggest noticeable difference in the overall shape, let me use one of these to compare, okay, is in the handle. Both the butt end of the handle is a different style. The overall shape of it is different, and up here by the guard is also different. With the griptilians, very smooth transition here. This one's more flattened out. You have an angle change right here. Okay, as far as function, this guard works. If I were to push, you know, stab into something, it would keep my hand from slipping fairly well. This one extends out just a little bit more, you know, but it's not that different as far as feel. But the overall look and design is different enough where you're not completely like, okay, it's a griptilian with some G10 on it. So there is a style difference here. But overall, they're awesome knives, just like the griptilians. They offer a right hand or left hand carry with the clip, and it's tip up, which everyone loves. You don't have tip down option with this knife, but not a lot of people get upset about that. Some people don't mind tip down, but to this day I've yet to hear someone say, "Oh, I'm not going to get that knife. It's not tip down." I just don't hear it. People have this obsession with tip up carry. I don't know why. I mean, I prefer it myself, but it's not like devastating. People, I've heard people that just feel disgusted. Oh man, this sucks. Oh God, I get that knife totally if it was just, tip up, but it's not. They're so stupid. I would have bought that. What's the problem? Is it that much of a deal to you? Well, like I said, who am I to judge? But you're really limiting yourself. There's some awesome knives out there that happen to be tipped down. But anyway, moving on. Not that it matters at all, but I do want to mention something. There's a notable, yes, it's notable, but it's also audible. I was going to say it's a notable audible. There's an audible click when I open this knife from the axis lock. Okay, you can hear it. I don't know why. I don't know if that's the spring, the Omega spring in there that's rubbing on something. Not a big deal, but did want to mention it. You don't have that in the other grips here. You can hear it slightly, like when it's moving. But I think that it's catching on something inside. I have to open it. It doesn't bother me that much, but I did want to mention it. So it's an audible click. Notable audible. What else can I say about this knife? Of course, lanyard hole on here. The opening hole itself is the same size as the mini grip. Okay, so if you do like that, some people like they prefer the different size ones. Something else I'll note, and I think I mentioned it in the past. I might have mentioned it in my EDC video, but when I go to open this blade, particularly when I'm opening it slowly. If I'm opening it fast, I'll use the top of my thumb like this to just to flick it out. But if I'm using it slowly, I'll use the pad of my thumb to grab that hole. And what I notice is that a little bit of the hole is covered by the handle. It's not a huge deal. And the same thing with the mini grip, where it's slightly covered by the handle. But this to me is a lot easier to access that hole. Just when you're sliding off of the scale here, it's just boom right there. With this one, it seems a little bit tighter. It's a little bit inside. By design, they'd have to change a lot of things. Either change the pivot point or they change the width of the blade to get this how I would want it. But I would prefer that hole just to be out just a smidge, and or just take in the handle just a little. So it's a little bit more easily accessible. Really such a minute thing, but it's something I wanted to mention because it's something that stood out to me. Again, my initial impressions with this knife is that, man, it's ripping up my pocket, and I kind of wish it was easier to get to. But anyway, besides those 2 points, it is an awesome, awesome knife. You'll notice that the hardware is all blacked out on this one. The axis lock is blacked out, which is, by the way, is a flat black, the same as the back spacer, whereas the screws, the 2 body screws on here and the pivot screw is more of a glossy finish. It might be hard to see, even side by side, it might be difficult to tell, but I'm telling you in person, this is a flat black, and this one is a very glossy black. And also the back portion, or the female of the pivot screw, is like a dome. It's raised as opposed to the griptilians, which is flat. Means nothing except for aesthetics, but something I want to mention, something I noticed. Overall, it's a fantastic knife. The performance is very good on this knife. It works great. It's chunky, in a good way. Definitely in a good way. I think a lot of people would like this knife. As far as like the ultimate question, since I got the griptilians here, it's more expensive than a griptilian. Is it worth it? Well, I mean, the D2 steel, I think, is a bonus. I like D2. As long as you maintain it, it's a great steel to have and use. It's a little bit heavier. To me, I don't know. I don't have any problems with griptilians. I don't think that they're not hard use knives. I think they could be. This one seems like it might be a little bit beefier. It just feels a little bit stronger, if that makes any sense. It's just a feeling you get with it. They're all going to perform the same. They all have the same axis lock. It's just, I don't know. Is it worth the money? I think it is. I like it. I do think it's worth the money. I love the griptilians. Is this an upgrade to a griptilian is what it comes down to, because you are paying more money? I would say yes. Yes, in different ways. But in at the same time, if you like this knife a lot and it's a little steep for you, look into a griptilian. It's a fantastic second choice. If you can't afford this one, definitely get yourself a griptilian. Even if you can afford this one, get yourself a griptilian, because they're just one of the most known knives from Benchmade. I think the griptilians themselves were so popular because they were the affordable knife with the axis lock. When the axis lock hit the market and it was a new thing, I mean, I remember that. It was like, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread. But some of the Osborne versions that Benchmade had at the time, the offerings were, twice as expensive. So of course everyone reverted right to the griptilians. And they made so many. In fact, if you go to Benchmade's site, I just saw today, they have a red handled griptilian with an S30V blade. I want it. Oh, I can taste it. It's that delicious. And yes, I just said a knife was delicious. That's how much I like knives. But I like the versatility in them. And yeah, to me, this is basically just a modified griptilian. Slightly different handle shape, different handle scales, different steel. But that's what you're getting. And I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. The whole pocket clip, ripping up the pants thing, it's not going to be an issue. I'm going to mod this, and it won't be a problem for me. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. I thank you very much for watching. You could stay tuned. I'm going to do a video. Actually, I'm going to do it in 2 seconds, but I don't know when I'm going to upload it. The second I shut off this camera, I'm grabbing my other griptilian, full size, and I'm going to do a blade swap. So I have the the combination that I want. So you'll see a video on that. Probably I'll upload it after this video. But anyway, that's the review on the Benchmade Bone Collector. Once again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Take care.